Have you ever sat across from someone and felt a chill, not from what they said, but from what they didn't? A look too calculating, a smile too perfect, a compliment that leaves you questioning your worth. Evil, in our modern lives, doesn't wear horns or cloak itself in shadows. It smiles, it listens, it nods in approval, and then it slowly consumes your peace, your confidence, your joy, until you're left wondering how everything fell apart. You see, evil isn't always loud. Sometimes it's so quiet, it walks right past your intuition. And that's why today's video matters. Because you're not paranoid, you're picking up on patterns. And once you learn to see them clearly, you take back the power they tried to steal. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca warned us long ago. Beware not the loud enemy, but the smiling destroyer. This is not just a list of red flags. This is your handbook for survival. We're about to uncover 10 signs that someone near you, at work, in your family, even in your closest circle, might not just be difficult. They might be dangerous. This isn't about fear. It's about clarity. Let's begin. Sign 1. Constant manipulation. He who has many fears also has many things to manipulate. Seneca. Manipulators rarely arrive with threats. They arrive with praise. They study your needs, validation, guidance, connection, and then use them as levers. They don't force control. They wrap it in concern. I'm just trying to help, they say, while slowly pulling your strings. I once had a manager who did just that. He complimented me often, said I had potential no one else saw. It felt good at first, but slowly his tone shifted. He began correcting small decisions, rewriting my work, offering better alternatives that just happened to make me rely more on him. When I questioned it, he smiled and said, "I'm just making sure you don't fail." And that's when I started to fail, internally. I doubted myself. I stopped taking initiative. I hesitated at every step, waiting for his nod of approval. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't silence you. It replaces your voice. The Stoics teach us that the key to strength is self-mastery. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But manipulators don't want you free. They want you dependent. Not because they care, but because they feed on your confusion. A manipulator won't tell you what to do outright. Instead, they'll plant seeds. Are you sure that's the best idea? I wouldn't do it that way, but it's your call. You know, I've been through this before. Right, each one chips away at your confidence until suddenly you're asking for permission to breathe. How do you know it's manipulation? You feel anxious after good conversations. You constantly second-guess yourself. Your wins feel like theirs, but your failures are definitely yours. And when you push back, they become calm, passive, and almost disappointed. You're too sensitive, they'll say, or worse, "I thought you trusted me." How to escape the cycle? You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight. You just need to name it. This isn't support. This is control. And once you name it, you begin to detach. True support builds independence. Manipulation creates dependence. And anyone who claims to help you but makes you feel smaller isn't helping. Sign 2. A mask of charm. Appearances, no matter how dazzling, often hide the truth beneath. Epictetus. They're magnetic. They make you feel seen, heard, valued. Their smile? Disarming. Their presence? Comforting. But something feels off. Not immediately, not obviously, but deep down you know it. This charm isn't real. It's rehearsed. We often confuse charm with goodness, but charm can be a weapon. The most dangerous people aren't cold. They're warm. They don't scare you. They impress you. And that's exactly what makes them so hard to spot. I once knew a guy like that. He complimented everyone. He listened intently, remembered birthdays, made you feel like you mattered. But over time, I saw the pattern. Once he got what he wanted, support, praise, a connection, he would disappear. And later, talk behind the backs of the very people he once flattered. His charm wasn't kindness, it was currency, a transaction disguised as affection. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If someone constantly wears a mask of charm, Ask what they're trying to cover. Real kindness doesn't sparkle, it radiates. A truly good person will not only make you feel good, they'll act with goodness when no one's watching. So ask yourself, are they the same person in private and in public? Do they show kindness when there's nothing to gain? Or does their warmth disappear when you're no longer useful? False charm is built on timing and strategy. It surfaces when you're vulnerable, when you need support, or when they need a favor. They say just the right things, smile just the right way, offer just enough encouragement to keep you around. But never enough truth to set you free. They don't want connection, they want control. How to protect yourself? Don't dismiss your gut. If someone seems too perfect, too agreeable, too on your side, pause. Genuine people are warm, but also honest. They'll tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. They won't flatter you to manipulate your choices. Epictetus reminds us, it is not events that disturb people. It is their judgment concerning them. So judge wisely. Don't let surface shine blind you from deeper truth. Sign 3. Lies without conscience. Nothing should be said that isn't true. Nothing should be done that isn't right. Marcus Aurelius. Some people lie to avoid trouble. Others lie to protect themselves. But truly dangerous individuals, they lie because it's who they are. Deceit isn't a tool, it's their language, their default setting, their reality. You won't always catch their lies right away, because they're not clumsy, they're calculated. They don't just say something false, they build a world around it. They mix a little truth with fiction, wrap it in emotion, and serve it with confidence. So even when it doesn't feel right, you doubt yourself, not them. I had a colleague once who was constantly praised for her leadership on a big campaign. She told everyone she had written the entire strategy from scratch. She spoke so passionately about the late nights and breakthroughs, it was hard not to admire her. Until I saw the shared folder. None of the work was hers. When I gently confronted her, she didn't panic or apologize. She smiled. "You must be confused," she said. "But don't worry, I don't need the credit." She turned the lie into a favor and made me feel like I was the one creating drama. This is the mark of a manipulative liar. They don't lie to hide a mistake. They lie to build power. They twist your perception until you stop trusting your own memory. Stoic philosophy teaches that truth requires no defense. Lies, on the other hand, constantly need repair. They need new stories to cover old ones, misdirection to dodge facts, emotion to cloud logic. If you notice someone whose stories shift under pressure, if their details don't align, but they always have an excuse, you're not dealing with forgetfulness. You're facing someone who crafts their world by bending yours. Here's how they trap you. They deny clear facts. That never happened. They question your memory. Are you sure? I think you misunderstood. They redirect. Why are you always so suspicious? Each time you try to find solid ground, they pull it out from under you, and the more you argue, the more control they gain, because now you're tangled in their version of reality. What to do? Don't fight their lies with emotion. Fight with observation. Stoics remind us, it's not what they say that reveals the truth, it's what they do. Watch their actions. Do they follow through on their promises? Do they hold the same story when talking to different people? When words and actions don't match, trust what you see, not what you hear. And most importantly, set boundaries. You don't need to expose them, you only need to protect yourself from their web. Because every time you try to reason with someone who lies without guilt, you hand them another thread to tie around you. Sign 4. Lack of empathy. We are not born for ourselves alone. Seneca. We all know what empathy looks like. A listening ear, a gentle word, a quiet presence during your darkest hours. But what about those who seem incapable of feeling with you? What about the ones who turn your pain into a burden, your joy into competition, your vulnerability into ammunition? That's not just emotional distance. That's a warning sign. Some people are emotionally unavailable, but the truly dangerous ones, they choose not to care. They listen, but not to understand, only to react. They nod, but only to interrupt with stories of their own. And if you share something painful, they minimize it, mock it, or worse, Ignore it completely. I once opened up to a friend about something deeply personal, something that had kept me awake for weeks. She listened silently, then said, "Well, at least you're not homeless or dying." Then she laughed and changed the subject. I sat there stunned, not just hurt but hollow. She didn't offer comfort, didn't even acknowledge my feelings, and over time, I realized this wasn't a one-off moment, it was a pattern. She simply couldn't care, unless it benefited her. Lack of empathy isn't just coldness, it's cruelty, dressed in silence. You'll feel it when you need support the most, and they're emotionally unavailable, emotionally absent, or emotionally mocking. Stoic wisdom reminds us, no man is an island. We rise by lifting others. Without empathy, there is no relationship, only transaction. They only show up when there's something to gain. They might feign concern, but their true self emerges when you're no longer useful. How to recognize this trait? They interrupt you with stories about themselves. They downplay your problems or turn them into jokes. They avoid discomfort by shutting down your feelings. They feel nothing when others are suffering, sometimes even pleasure. Yes, some people feel good when you feel bad. They smile when others fail. They seem emotionally untouched by tragedy. It's subtle, but chilling. What should you do? First, stop expecting warmth from a frozen heart. You can't teach empathy to someone who sees it as weakness, and you shouldn't have to. Instead, protect your peace. Don't beg for compassion. Don't keep opening your heart to someone who walks past it like a locked door. Surround yourself with people who meet your pain with patience and your joy with genuine celebration. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one." Be the kind of person who listens, who lifts, who cares. But don't sacrifice yourself for someone who refuses to do the same. Sign 5, hunger for control. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Epictetus. Not all control is obvious. Sometimes it looks like concern. Sometimes it sounds like love. But underneath, it's about domination. True control isn't about shouting or slamming doors. It's about quiet erosion of your confidence, your choices, and eventually your sense of self. They'll say, "I just want what's best for you. Trust me. I've done this before. Are you sure that's a good idea?" They speak gently, never aggressively. But with every word, they're nudging you toward their vision of who you should be, not who you are. I once had someone like that in my life. At first, their advice felt helpful, reassuring, even wise. But over time, I realized something strange. I wasn't making decisions anymore. I was waiting for their approval. I stopped trusting my instincts, and slowly, my independence vanished. When I finally said no to a suggestion that didn't feel right, they went silent for days, not out of hurt, out of punishment. That's when I understood. Their help was never about support. It was about control. And the more I resisted, the more guilt they tried to place on me. They used kindness as a leash, a smile as a chain. Stoic wisdom reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Epictetus. Those who seek to control you know this. That's why they go after your freedom first, not your time, not your money, but your mind. They want you to believe you can't succeed without them. You can't make decisions on your own. You're safer when you follow their lead. How do they do it? They dismiss your opinions. That's not realistic. They delay your choices. Think on it more, I'll help you later. They turn small failures into proof that you need them. You stop leading your life. You start asking, what would they think? How to break free. Notice the pattern. Are your decisions becoming theirs? Reclaim your voice. Make one small choice on your own, even if it's uncomfortable. Observe their reaction. True supporters celebrate your growth. Controllers resent it. And most importantly, don't let guilt become your compass. You don't owe loyalty to someone who holds you back. You don't owe peace to someone who thrives on your doubt. True connection lifts you up. It doesn't tie you down. Real care sounds like, I support you either way. What do you want? You've got this. Even if you fail, I'm still here. If those words feel unfamiliar, maybe you're not in a supportive relationship. Maybe you're in someone's cage. Protect your mind. It is your first and final fortress. No one, no matter how kind, close, or charismatic, has the right to claim it. As Marcus Aurelius said, the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. So think clearly, choose boldly, and walk away from anyone who tries to shape your life more than you do. Sign 6. Blame games and deflection. The truth stands on its own. Lies always require stories. Seneca. There's a certain kind of person who never apologizes, never admits fault, never says, "That was my mistake." Instead, they rewrite the narrative, casting themselves as the victim and you as the cause. You miss a deadline? I was waiting on you. They hurt your feelings? You're too sensitive. They lie? You misunderstood. They have an excuse for everything, and if one excuse doesn't work, they'll invent another. This isn't clumsiness, it's a strategy. They shift blame so smoothly, you start to doubt yourself. You carry weight that isn't yours. You begin apologizing for things you didn't even do. Why? Because they've trained you to question your memory, but never theirs. I once worked on a group project with someone I trusted. When things started falling apart, I assumed we'd solve it together. But instead, she quietly started pointing fingers to our manager, to teammates, and eventually, to me. The way she framed it, I just think we need better organization. As if she wasn't the one who ignored half the deadlines. She stayed calm, composed, professional. And by the time I realized what was happening, the damage to my credibility was done. Stoic wisdom teaches us, truth doesn't need decoration. Lies, however, require drama. They need build-up, emotion, and constant explanation. If someone always has a reason, but never takes responsibility, you're not dealing with someone honest. You're dealing with someone escaping accountability. How do they deflect blame? They turn every criticism into a counterattack. They bring up your unrelated mistakes. They act offended that you're blaming them. They confuse the conversation until you forget the original issue, and eventually, you're the one apologizing, just to restore peace. But it's not peace. It's manipulation. How to protect yourself, stay calm and clear. Don't let emotional chaos cloud facts. Document patterns. When stories keep shifting, write down what actually happened. Set emotional boundaries. You are not responsible for someone else's unwillingness to grow. You're not difficult for pointing out the truth. You're not toxic for expecting honesty. If someone consistently flips the story to avoid accountability, you're not in a partnership. You're in a blame machine. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change." That's humility, that's strength, and that's what the blame shifter fears the most, a person who stays rooted in truth. You don't need revenge, you don't need a dramatic confrontation, you just need distance and clarity. Let their story crumble on its own, because truth doesn't fight to be seen, it simply waits. Sign 7. The pleasure of pain. Associate with those who make you better. Epictetus. Some people offer support, some offer silence, but the most dangerous ones offer a smile when you suffer. They don't just fail to care, they enjoy it. This kind of person won't push you down with force. They'll simply step back and smirk when life does it for them. Their delight is subtle, a chuckle when you're embarrassed, a glint in their eye when you fail, a comforting hug that feels just a bit too smug. They don't say "I told you so," but their silence screams it. I once had a friend who always seemed excited when bad things happened to others. When a colleague got fired, she called it karma. When I shared that my relationship ended, she said, "Wow, didn't see that coming, but maybe it's for the best. Now you'll understand how I felt." It wasn't empathy, it was vengeance in disguise. Stoic philosophy teaches us that adversity is meant to build, not break. But people like this use adversity to rise by stepping on others while they're down. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." But these people aren't unhappy in adversity. They're ecstatic when it happens to others. Because in your failure, they find victory. In your weakness, they feel powerful. What does this look like in real life? They highlight your mistakes in front of others. They subtly celebrate your misfortunes. They share your private struggles, dressed up as concern. They compare your worst moments to their own to feel superior. They won't outright attack. They'll use your pain as proof of their strength. Your sadness becomes their subtle celebration. What drives them? Insecurity. They don't know how to build their worth, so they tear yours down. Every fall you take confirms their belief that they're better, smarter, stronger, more in control. And they'll never admit it, because they don't see it as cruelty. They see it as justice. How to respond? Don't confront their behavior with drama. Just recognize it for what it is, a reflection of their emptiness. Protect your energy. Don't share your struggles with those who smile behind your back. Don't seek comfort from someone who sees your pain as entertainment. Instead, seek those who truly lift you, who win with you and mourn with you. Those whose joy doesn't require your suffering. As Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, and the company you keep directly shapes those thoughts. So if someone finds joy in your pain, remove the stage they're performing on. Your life. Sign 8. Isolation as a weapon. Humans are born to cooperate. Our strength lies in unity. Marcus Aurelius. Evil doesn't always isolate you by force. Sometimes it isolates you with subtle suggestions. A quiet comment here, a lingering doubt there, until one day you look around and you're alone. They say things like, your best friend isn't really loyal. Your family doesn't get you the way I do. They're jealous of your success. And at first, it sounds like concern, like protection. But it's not. It's disconnection. I once had a friend who slowly drove wedges between me and everyone close to me. She'd compliment me, then say, you're growing so fast. Too bad your partner can't keep up. Or, I just think your other friends drain your energy. These comments weren't direct attacks. They were seeds of doubt, of distance, and I didn't even realize I was watering them until I looked up and the room was empty. This is no accident. It's a tactic. When someone isolates you from your support system, they gain total access to your mind, your emotions, your choices. The fewer people around to question them, the easier it becomes to control you. Stoic wisdom teaches us that real strength comes from inner clarity, but also outer connection. We're not meant to navigate life alone. We're social beings. We sharpen our thoughts through dialogue, our hearts through shared experiences, and our growth through honest reflection from others. When someone tries to take that away, they're not protecting you, they're imprisoning you. Signs you being isolated. You feel guilty when talking to others. You stop sharing things with people you used to trust. Someone close to you criticizes everyone else in your life. You feel dependent on only one person for emotional stability. This isn't loyalty. This is strategic loneliness. How to reclaim your circle. Pause and reflect. Ask, am I truly growing or just becoming more isolated? Reach out to old connections. Even one phone call can help reset your perspective. Name the behavior. It doesn't need to be a fight. You can simply say, I've noticed I've been more distant from people who used to ground me. Watch how they react. Someone who loves you will encourage reconnection. Someone who controls you won't. Remember, isolation is fertile ground for manipulation. When your world shrinks, their influence grows. You become easier to mold, to manage, to dominate. Not because you're weak, but because we all need mirrors. And when they take them away, you only see yourself through their eyes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle becomes the way. So turn this awareness into action. If someone tries to shrink your world, expand it. Rebuild old bridges. Reconnect with voices that remind you of who you were before the isolation. Because real love, real friendship, real support, it connects. It doesn't cage. Sign 9. Jealousy in disguise. Envy is the ulcer of the soul. Seneca. Jealousy doesn't always show up with bitterness. Sometimes it arrives dressed as concern. It speaks softly. It smiles. But every word is a needle. It doesn't cut you at once. It pokes holes, small, constant ones, in your confidence, your joy, your worth. Jealous people often appear supportive. They'll congratulate you, but there's a twist. That's amazing. Though, don't get too comfortable. You did great, but you could have pushed harder. I'm happy for you, but did you hear what she did? On the surface, it's encouragement. Underneath, it's erosion. I had a friend who did this masterfully. After I presented at a conference, she hugged me and said, "You're such a natural. I mean, your slides weren't perfect, but you made up for it." I laughed it off, at first. But it happened again and again. Every win came with a quiet subtraction. And over time, I stopped celebrating around her. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true joy comes from internal peace, not comparison. But for the envious, your success feels like their failure. Your light casts a shadow on what they haven't built, so they dim your glow to feel safe in theirs. How to recognize jealousy in disguise? They rarely celebrate your success fully. They compare you to others who did better. Their compliments include subtle jabs. They plant doubt right after you feel proud. And worst of all, they make you question whether you're the problem. You start thinking, am I being arrogant? Maybe I do talk about my work too much. She's just being honest, right? But no, she's being envious, politely. How to respond? First, don't play small to make others feel big. Your success is not a threat, it's a reflection of your effort. If someone cannot handle your joy, that's their journey, not your responsibility. Here's how to protect yourself. Notice the pattern. If compliments always carry an edge, take it seriously. Don't explain your success. You earned it, period. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you without condition. Real friends clap when you rise. They don't measure your wins against their ego. Seneca reminds us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Jealousy isn't about you. It's about what they feel they lack, and no amount of dimming your light will help them find their own. So shine. Because when you shine, two things happen. Those who love you grow with you. Those who resent you reveal themselves. And either way, clarity is a gift. Sign 10, the unrepentant heart. Do not waste time debating what a good person should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. We all make mistakes. We all hurt others, intentionally or not. But the difference between a decent soul and a dangerous one? Remorse. Where a good heart says, "I'm sorry," an unrepentant one says, "You're too sensitive. You misunderstood. It's not a big deal." They don't apologize. They justify. They rewrite the event, minimize the impact, and sometimes make you feel guilty for even bringing it up. And the most disturbing part, they don't feel bad because they don't believe they did anything wrong. I once confronted someone who had publicly humiliated me in front of others. I approached them calmly, privately, hoping for clarity. They looked at me and said, "If it really bothered you that much, maybe you're not cut out for this." There was no regret, no awareness, only blame, deflection, and cold dismissal. Stoic wisdom teaches us that humility and growth go hand in hand. We are all flawed, but to evolve, we must reflect. And that requires something the unrepentant heart refuses to offer: accountability. What do unrepentant people look like? They never say sorry, only explanations. They blame the reaction, not the action. They repeat the same hurtful patterns. They see apology as weakness, not strength. They view remorse as surrender and growth as a threat to their ego. What does this create in you? Doubt, self-blame, confusion. You start wondering if you're the one with unrealistic expectations. You question if asking for respect is too much, but it's not. And deep down, you know it. How to respond? Stop chasing accountability from someone who never offers it. Their silence isn't forgetfulness, it's a message. They choose not to change. And every time you excuse their refusal, you lose a piece of yourself. Here's how to protect your peace. Observe their pattern, not their words but their repetition. Don't beg for understanding. Someone who cares doesn't need convincing. Draw a line, not as punishment, but as protection. A relationship without remorse is not a relationship, it's emotional erosion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." So be the one who apologizes, be the one who reflects, be the one who grows, and let go of those who won't, because you deserve peace. Not excuses. You deserve people who heal with you, not harm you and walk away untouched. And above all, you deserve to live in a world where hearts may not be perfect, but at least they try.